Hello, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, fellow advocates for social justice. I am honored to present to you. Welcome to everyone to our inaugural session of Project 100 Civic Engagement Presents. I am Reverend Dr. Hannah R. Broom as the Executive Director of Project 100. And I am privileged to hang out with you on tonight as we embark on a journey of enlightenment, empowerment, and civic action. Today's session is not just a gathering, it's a call to action to lift the veil on some critical issues that are affecting our society. We're convened here with some amazing guests, some panelists that we're going to delve into the contentious and concerning issues of banned books and education. Ban or Ballot is our first series. And we firmly believe that banning books impacts the educational landscape. It restricts access to diverse perspectives. It stifles intellectual growth and hinders our collective pursuit of knowledge. It is an intersectionality of voter suppression and the things that are happening in this society. We're going to deal with our democracy. We're going to deal with how the educational system and the ballot are interconnected. Our mission tonight with Project 100 Civic Engagement Presents is clear. It's to inform, inspire, and mobilize. We're going to navigate some crucial topics today. We're going to talk with some amazing people to remember that change begins with knowledge, which is the key to empowerment. I want to thank you all for joining, hang out with us on tonight. If you are a Project 100 civic engager, you know one in your district, in your conference, on your Episcopal level, drop their name in the chat. Drop their name in the messaging, in the comments. We want to hear from them as well. We want to hear from you. Any questions that you have as we are going through on tonight, we would love to answer. We would love to have you join in this conversation. We don't want this just to be some presentation, but we want to be some participation. So thank you all for joining our live stream as we are dealing with some serious issues, banned or ballot. We're going to introduce our panelists as they come on. They're going to give their introductions of themselves way better than I can do. So at this time, we're going to open it up for our panelists to come into this session, come in and hang out with you as well. Dr. Walker, Reverend Kathy Grace, Reverend Sonia Burns, and Mr. Damon Nichols. Could y'all just introduce yourself to it's our live stream congregation. I'm so preachery to introduce ourselves to our audience.
Well, good evening. My name is Reverend Dr. Curtis T. Walker, Sr. I'm the pastor of Bethel AME Zion Church in Cleveland, Ohio, but I'm also the presiding elder of the Akron District in Ohio. I spent 20 years on the Akron School Board, dealing with children, issues, buildings, funding, etc. So I'm listening, looking forward to the conversation about banning and balloting and how finances have affected how we deal with our schools as it relates to building, funding, etc. So I look forward to hearing from all of our other panelists and guests tonight.
Awesome. Reverend Barnes?
Hi, I'm Reverend Sonia Burns, and I'm assistant minister at Tabernacle AME Zion Church in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I'm also in higher education. I work within the South Carolina Technical College system, but I do need to let you all know that I'm not speaking on behalf of any of my schools or any other organization on tonight, but I'm just speaking for myself. I am a community advocate. So as far as with public education, what I try to do is empower the stakeholders. So I'm looking forward to sharing tonight as well as learning from my other panelists tonight.
Awesome. Reverend Grace.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Kathy Farrow Grace. I am an educator in the Wake County Public School System. And I think I've taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, middle school, but I'm in the 2nd grade right now, enjoying a part of our equity and also our SEL committees at school. I'm a pastor, and I've been a pastor for the last 17 years in the Albemarle Conference. I pastor Morningstar AME Zion Church and also Pleasant Grove. So yes, on 1st and 3rd Sundays, I'm doing the 2 church thing. I live in Cary, North Carolina. I make that drive, but guess what? It's worth the drive, and we're so grateful for what God is doing. Grateful and excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we're looking forward to learning, to growing together, and to moving forward to mobilize so that we can do all that God would have us to do in this season.
Awesome. Mr. Nichols.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Damon Nichols. I am a member of Liberty Hill AME Zion Church, where the pastor is the Reverend Lawrence Gansey Jr. I'm also the Rock Hill District President of the Rock Hill District Lay Council. And I'm also the past South Carolina State Director of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. As Reverend Sonia Burns stated, need to give my disclaimer. I am here as Damon Nichols and Damon Nichols only. But I'm also here not only as a community advocate, but as a parent. I have two children that are currently teenagers, in fact, that are in public schools. And tonight, I just want to help everyone connect the dots. And secondly, engage the audience. And then number three, empower the audience to do what is necessary in the months and weeks ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, panelists, for the experience that you're going to bring to this conversation, the passion and the intellect. One of the things, let's get started. One of the things I really want to see how you feel about the banned books in education. How does banning books in the educational setting impact students' access to diverse perspectives? If each one of you, beginning with Reverend Grace, then we'll go to Reverend Burns, Mr. Nichols, and then Dr. Walker. How does banning books in educational settings impact students? Reverend Grace?
I think that it truly does impact students, and it doesn't impact them in a positive way. It impacts them in a negative way. I think about the books that we read as we were growing up, and those books laid the foundation for us to be who we are today. And now you're taking away some of the greatest literature works that have ever been created, and you are allowing your students and your children still to play video games where they actually kill each other and they're hurting each other. These books are the things that laid the foundation and told the truth. And it goes back to what they're getting ready to do with the critical race theory. And they're getting ready to take all of this stuff out of our system so that our children won't understand what slavery really was. They said that slavery was not slavery, but slavery was an individual decision. And I'm not speaking on behalf of Wake County. I'm speaking on behalf of Kathy Farrow Grace, just in case anybody needed to know. And so as far as that banning is concerned, this is where the parents, and this is where we need to stand, and we need to be that forefront and let people know, hey, we can't allow this to happen, because if we do and we allow it to continue to go on, our children will miss out on a great opportunity to learn some things that they need to learn.
Very good. Reverend Burns.
Mm-hmm. I agree with what Reverend Grace has said. And as a critical multicultural educator, one who really advocates and really wants all persons to be represented and to have their voices heard, I disagree with banning books, because most often what is happening is you have one particular type of organization who's making the decision on which type of books should be removed. And so that's the reason why we all need to continue to have our voices be heard concerning this, because we don't want anyone ignored, whether it be based on your race or ethnicity, based on your ability, or your gender orientation, or even your size. All these things are affected when we allow them to select certain books to be removed. And again, just like Reverend Grace has said, these young people are being exposed in all other forms of media. Why not allow educators who have been trained, who know how to speak to our young people, why not allow them to be a part of the conversation with them, as well as ourselves? So again, we need to speak up. We need to speak with our young people, but we also need to make sure that we are aware of which organizations are making these decisions and influencing our school boards, our administrators, on which books they do and do not want in our schools. So we need to speak up.
Very good. Mr. Nichols.
So let's put everything into perspective. 180 years ago, 1843, we were not allowed to read. It was forbidden. Here we are, 2023, the 21st century, and we are repeating some of the same things that took place 180 years ago. Let's put that in perspective, because that's important. one thing that we have to remember, knowledge is power.
That's right.
And at the end of the day, there are certain groups that want to hold on to power.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start removing power from people, that's when you start seeing things take place. That's when you start seeing these groups pop up. And I hope we start later on this evening. We name these individuals and these groups because
Moms for Liberty.
ding, ding, correct. So, but with that being said, it's about power because they understand that knowledge is power. And that's why we have to communicate tonight as well as going forward.
That's right.
That our power lies in education, educating our children, educating our laity, educating everyone.
That's right.
Because when you have power, you can make decisions. You can create a table. You won't even have to ask for a seat at the table. You can create a table and you can determine who will sit at your table instead of asking for permission to sit at a table. So we have to put those things into perspective when it comes to the fact that 180 years ago, we were not allowed to read. Now we have the capability and they understand that and they know that. So now they're trying to pull back.
Very good. Very good. Dr. Walker, you being a retired school board member, how do you feel about this question, the banning of books?
Banning of books should never have occurred, never have happened. We don't learn from history. If we, as our brother just mentioned 180 years ago, if we look back during World War II and the Nazi regain, the Nazi movement, their whole movement was to burn and ban books.
That is
To
right.
take knowledge, yea, power away from the people so that they would not be able to read and learn about themselves. We learned through slavery, Reconstruction. Again, that period of time in our own history where we were denied access to books, learning to read, so that we would be able to make decisions for ourselves and be able to speak for ourselves. Grateful for our foreparents who took the initiative to read books, even if it meant death, beating, even if it meant hardships. They learned to read and to write. And now we take it for granted.
Right.
Yeah.
And we let small groups of individuals, and that's why it's so important, and I'm sure we'll touch base on it, that we have to elect, support, and elect individuals to our school boards that speak for the people.
That's right.
Not for these fringe groups, these neo groups, these ultra-conservative groups that again want to deny us rights, access, privileges, and knowledge. And that knowledge is gained by reading books. So important to be able to read. I just read a few moments ago, just had my granddaughter, who's in the 3rd grade, 8 years old, trying to encourage her the importance of reading so that she can be independent.
Yes.
Have her own power and be able to speak for herself. If she does not learn to read, someone has to speak for her and guide her. And in most cases, they'll be guiding her in the wrong direction, not the right direction. So we've got to work hard to put the right people on our school boards and our state legislatures and those areas that make decisions about funding. And I'll be lifting up a few things about that maybe later on, because all of that trickles down and affects what we can and cannot do in our school system.
That's right.
Absolutely. That banning of books, you guys are so on point. That's almost an intellectual restriction. Now it's indoctrination, and we know what the issue is with indoctrination. And I'm seeing as we are going through and reading articles, the church does now have another responsibility.
That's right.
To teach Black history. Another responsibility when we see that there's a lack, and that's the beautifulness of church and our faith communities, is when we saw that there was a neglect or a insufficiency in the secular world concerning our families, the Black church stepped in and said that we're going to be a part of this. And so I'm so thankful for this platform. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you, because the points that you brought out were on point. They were on target. But where we need to pay attention, we got to ask questions. Another thing with this banned books and education, what role should educators, parents, and concerned citizens play in advocating for the right to access literature and ideas within the schools? What is that role, and how do you see it being most effective in your experience, in your walk of life? And we'll start with Reverend Burns, then we're going to Mr. Nichols, Reverend Grace, and then Dr. Walker.
I think just like I kind of mentioned earlier, that we all need to speak up and have our voices be heard. But if you do have children that are in the school system, one thing that you can think about is look at their assignments and question whether or not they have to read the book that the teacher tells them to read for their book report. Because most of the time, there is a lot more flexibility than what we are aware of initially. And so if we want our young people to be exposed and have broader knowledge, we can help them look for the materials themselves to incorporate into their assignments. And then not only will they be reinforcing what they need to learn, but they may have an opportunity to share with their instructors or teachers, as well as their classmates. So we can look at the assignments. If we are engaged with what's being taught, what's being asked of our young people, we can participate in that way, where we offer programming, or we offer resources that can be used as a part of their assignments. So we don't want to just limit them to the list or the activities that the schools are providing, but we can ask the question, do they have to evaluate that picture? Can I give them a picture of African art? For example, the picture that I submitted, Mr. Kent, will you bring up the picture of the child? It says, every child is your child. Why can't they give an illustration or a narrative about that particular picture? Why do they have to accept the picture that the teacher gave them that may not even look anything like them? And so that's an example of how we can be a part of helping our young people with an alternative to the attempt to exclude what they are interested in.
That's good. That's good.
So I will say this: a couple of, I guess you could say, reminders and points. Number one, parents, we're at the beginning of the school year. Email your child's or your children's teachers.
Please.
These teachers want to have you involved. So email your teachers, email all of them. I did that last week for my son, and all of the teachers responded. Number two, make sure you know when your school board is meeting, and then go and encourage others to come with you. Now, let me say this: school board meetings don't start at a quote unquote convenient time. They start at 6 o'clock. They start at 6:30. So there's going to have to be some sacrifice made in order for you to get there. Now, if you can't make it in person, most, if not all, of our school board meetings are now virtual. So you can watch. Number three. Number four, remember, if you want to speak at a school board meeting, you have to submit at least a week before to get permission to speak at the school board. Number five, go to your child's open house. Let the other teachers and principals and assistants, let them see your presence, your physical presence in the schools. And then number six, don't be afraid to pop up at your child's school. Take a half a day from work and go. And not only just to sit in on your child's class or your children's class, but to observe the behavior of the entire school on that day.
Absolutely. That's
gives
good.
you a snapshot of what's going on. It gives you a snapshot of what the administrators are doing and the other students are doing. Those things are going to help us in the long run make a definite impact. But not only that, but to have our voices heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one thing for us to be. It's protesting is good, marching is good, but guess what? Sometimes you have to, instead of trying to knock down the door, you have to put your hand on the doorknob and turn the doorknob and walk in. And then let your presence be felt when you walk into the room. We all know when we walk into the room, we change the atmosphere.
Change the atmosphere. Yes, sir.
And we have to be atmosphere changers. So
very good. Very good.
So thank you so much for this. This is a wonderful, wonderful question. I'm that different type of teacher. I'm not your normal teacher. So guess what we learned today and what we talked about? We talked about amendment number 13, 14, 15, and 19 on today. That's what we talked about on today in my class. And that's social studies lesson on today. And so the kids ask questions. These are second graders. And one thing that we have to stop doing, stop talking to them like they're babies. We're talking to them like we're teaching them and helping them to get their mindset and the foundation laid so that they can be successful later on. And so as we're talking about it, one of the students asked, they said, really? Did they really treat people that look like you like that back then? That's a terrible thing. Again, that's what we want to teach them so that we teach them right now so that as they grow up later on, they'll realize if they do see that happen somewhere, that they'll know, okay, I learned this. And so this is just, and I'm gonna shut up in just a second. Let me tell you how much our kids don't know. I had a little girl in my class last year and she was her father. It's not possible because she's a little white girl. She said her mother told her that Martin Luther King was her father. And she tried to convince the entire class of that. And so the kids came and asked, Miss Grace, I don't think that's who Martin Luther King is. Could you teach us some more about it? That right there is where we take that opportunity that they open their mouth and ask that we can go and teach some more. Please come to the school. Please sit in the classroom. Please let your face be known. I've heard people say, I don't go to the school. I just let my wife take care of it. No, let them see the father, let them see the mother, grandfather, and let them know that you are somebody that's there to support, that I'm going to come before things get bad. I'm going to come if things get bad. I'm going to be there after things get bad so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen somewhere down the road. The more parental involvement that we have, and not just parents, but your guardians as well. I tell you, the children truly, truly appreciate that as well. Those books, and I saw somebody posted the books that are banned. You get those books for your children and you read them to your children. If you need to know, have some lesson plans, or you want to know, how can I teach that? See a teacher, call me. We're good. And I can make sure that we get that so that we can educate our children. Don't wait until your child gets in the middle school to teach them all about their history. I need you to start teaching them now as soon as they are able to learn. And if they can learn the Bible verse, Jesus wept, surely they can learn that the 19th Amendment allowed women the opportunity to vote. And so those are the things that we need to do. I get excited when we talk about things like this because I know that if we don't get excited about it, guess what's going to happen? History is going to repeat itself. And things are going to continue to be like this. We have an opportunity to make a difference. Let's do that. Let's do this together and let's get God to come on in here. We're going to do what God calls us to do so we can make a difference. I'm going to be quiet now.
Before Dr. Walker comes on, and I know he's going to tighten this, finish this up, not only parents, concerned citizens, your pastor, your Christian education director, your missionary leader, your youth director, all of those can pop in, because when they know that the community supports these children, they're going to be on guard. oh, we can't do this because we got people coming in the community that know what we're teaching our kids, what's happening to them, and they know, the children know somebody cares for me, because we don't have nuclear families. Our family makeup looks totally different from what others think they should make up. So that community, yes, come in. I don't have any children in North Carolina in school, but I'm in the school system. I'm going to see, because when I was a pastor, when I was presiding elder, they knew who I was because you're there. So not only the parents, the grandparents, we are a communal people. So it's all about the village. All about the village. So Dr. Walker, wrap this up, and then we're going to go into the other question.
Amen. It is all about the village. Now, on the 21st, here in Akron, in fact, in the state of Ohio, it was started with the Fatherhood Initiative, where fathers would take their children to school. It is branched out now, not simply be Father's Initiative, but Parents Initiative, where grandparents, fathers, mothers, singled, or father-mother combinations, or any parent combination, comes to school that day, sits, listen to a little speech, bring their child in, take a picture with their child. Make sure you're involved in PTA.
Absolutely.
PTO. Make sure you're involved with, again, as Brother Nichols has said, with going to open house. There are many, many little snapshots or many little tools that teachers are using today that you can communicate them 24/7.
Yes.
You can email them. You can have other little tools that they use where you can look at the assignments for your child's homework.
Absolutely.
You don't have to wait for them to give you the homework. You can pull that up. You can talk to the teacher. You can share with things. You can talk with the principal. I just met today with our new superintendent of Akron School Board. I told him I want to meet with him. I'm no longer on the school board. I'm just a regular citizen, just like everybody else. But I'm interested in making sure that my voice is heard. So if something happens or something comes up, he knows that Reverend Walker is concerned about all of the children in Akron Public Schools and how we might be able to help them. We've got to educate ourselves on school funding. And the state of Ohio is based on property taxes. The state of Ohio, the Supreme Court, the state of Ohio has ruled that unconstitutional for many, many years. They just recently started a new formula on how to fund public education. And that's important because we know that because of funding, many of our Black and brown students receive less money for their public education, not only for their education, but for their school building. And so we see dilapidated schools with mold and with paint. Yet down the road, we see brand new buildings, brand new facilities. But our children have to deal with the lease. That goes back to the area of segregation, borrowed books, and poor facilities. So we've got to work hard advocating for our children every day. Every day. Every opportunity to make sure that they're taken care of. I would hope in Akron, lunch and breakfast is free for every student.
Should be federal.
For 8th grade. They work out that through their budget so they don't have to worry. We've got to watch for our children who come to school hungry. We got to watch out for our children who come to school ill-clothed. We've got to watch out for our children who have difficulty. We've adopted our school in our neighborhood, and we provide underwear. We provide school material. We provide encouragement to the teacher and to the principal. We have invested our time and energy because this is our adopted school. It's Mary Bethune Elementary School.
Oh, great.
And so we have adopted that school to make sure that they know that the church supports them. The body of Christ supports them.
And Reverend Broom, just one more thing before we move on. Parents, especially middle school and high school, well, even elementary, we can't wait. We can't be that Friday night parent.
Nope.
We can't. we have to get out of that mode of just going to see our child on Friday night football or on Tuesday and Thursday at the high school basketball game. We got to move beyond that.
Yes.
Because guess what? And I'm gonna say it. Many of our school districts only are concerned in regards to students of color when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
If we can keep them with the minimum GPA, we're good. And I know Reverend Burns is going to touch on this in a little bit, but as long as we can keep them with a minimum GPA, we're good.
We good.
But we've got to go beyond the minimum because we want them to be, as we stated earlier, educated enough to think for themselves. I don't want somebody directing my child. I want my child to have enough education to know, okay, the path that you're trying to steer me on, general education, no, I'm smarter than that. You know, and then I'm gonna be quiet. Encourage your children to take AP courses.
Yes.
Encourage not just the college track, and push your children.
Yes.
You know, they push you to buy phones, you push them.
That's good. Because critical thinkers, and this goes in, and then Reverend Burns, I do want you to, since we pointed towards community involvement, community advocates for our children, I do want you to begin to touch on that as we go into the second part, and that's the voter suppression. Critical intellectual perspective that change create critical thinkers. Critical thinkers are culture changers. And so if I can stop you from being a critical thinker, then I can actually create the culture that will oppress you.
There you go.
And so we have to be advocates. We have to be right on point, talking with parents. And there are parents that may not know their right to access to their children's education, and part of their educational program, their IEPs and those individual situations. So we as those that we are educators, those that know, connect with the parent like, hey, do you know that this is happening at the school? I know your kid, your child goes to the school. Did you know that these things are going on? Hey, do you want to ride with me? Let's have some conversation. Maybe that parent may have an issue, a concern, or, a little bit of insecurity because it's very frightening to them. They might have some trauma, whatever, at school. Guess what? That's what the church is for. Let that church be the safe space where teachers and administrators and parents and community leaders can come together, because every child is our child.
That's right.
Period. So we have to be able to find that neutral ground. It may not be the school that the parent has to go to. Maybe you as a pastor, you as a community leader, you as an advocate can say, hey, there's a church in the middle. Can we help have that space as a neutral place where parents can come and ask questions to administrators, ask questions to teachers, help each one of our individual kids find a way to succeed.
Yes.
Find a way that if they're struggling, I don't want a child to say I'm a failure. That's an opportunity for growth. They're not failures. They're not mistakes. Those are opportunities for growth. There's opportunities to be educated, opportunities to succeed. So let's find ways, creative ways, reimagine. That fellowship hall is closed all week until Sunday morning. Open it up and let the educators and the teachers and the parents have some real conversations, courageous conversations like, hey, our children there's an issue and we need to start addressing it. So let's find ways.
May I really quickly? And I appreciate you saying that. If it comes to the place where your child is struggling, please don't think your child is being labeled if they start to talk about IEPs and 504s. Let me tell you what that does. Getting an IEP is not a death sentence, but getting an IEP is to ensure that your child will be successful. So not only will they have their regular classes, they also going to have extra assistance to help them with not only what they're teaching at that moment, but also the foundation that's going to be able to help them with other things as well. We've got to get out of that mindset that my child child is a failure because I got to go to the school and they got to be pulled out and they have to have an IEP. No, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Your child is going to be able to get an IEP and they're still going to be able to be successful and still graduate high school with a diploma. Do you even know that your special needs children, our children that are ID mod, and that we have ID mod, ID mild, and they've stopped ID mild. That's a whole nother story. But do you know that they even have college classes and college degrees, that those students can go to college as well? And we don't want to do that because we say we want our child to have a normal life. So I don't want them to be pulled. I don't want them to get those extra resources because people are going to laugh at them. And I said, no, we teach our children that, no, you're being strengthened to be that next great leader in this world. And I need you to get all of the resources that you have. I had a sixth grader years back. She read on a second grade level. And so she had an IEP. But guess what happened? As she continued to go through the program, because you're only allowed to be held back once. So guess what happens if your child does not know how to read and they get held back one time? They're going to keep on passing them and passing them. They will not get a diploma. They'll get a certificate. You want your child to be successful so that they'll be able to get a diploma. But guess what? So that when they turn 18, they will be able to read. Oh my goodness, it's time to vote. Let's see who it is that we need to vote, and let us understand what these candidates are all about. So I tell you, all of this is going to tie right in together, and this is it's just a wonderful thing. Thank you for this opportunity.
And another, just one other quick point, another way to look at IEPs or the individual education plans is that it also informs the teachers and all the other staff, because sometimes they are not aware of what they need to do to assist. And even in higher education, myself being an instructor and now being a curriculum specialist, it's correct, some of the points that have been made, that these tools travel with the student. But oftentimes in higher education, they have to, again, self-identify because the parents can't always speak on their behalf. But what's most important is that it helps us to be informed, us as the educators also be informed of how we can best support the student. So I agree with Reverend Grace. Do not deny your child that opportunity to have that IEP, because they truly do get the tools that they need for greater success. And it also informs the teachers and the instructors and all the rest of the staff as to what they need to do to be a part of that student's team so that they can be successful.
And the 504 is also a source of support. We have children who may be slow learners, who may have difficulty. That gives them more time to take a test that they may not be used to, be able to evaluate that. It tells the teachers, as it's already been expressed by Reverend Burns, that this child needs a little more time. So they may read slower. They may need more time with their math. They may need other assistance, other help.
And that's okay.
504 would give them that opportunity. We look at things as has already been said, Reverend Grace, as a negative when it can be a positive.
Yes.
We've got to, on the other flip side, when it's a gifted student and they give them extra things, or if they're a STEM student or a STEAM student and they get extra things, we're okay with that. But we don't look at that on the other side.
That's
when the student needs that extra care and extra help, we look at it sometimes as a negative, that's going to hold them back. But that's a building ground.
Yes.
So that they can do better later.
Yes.
So we've got to educate our parents and our community on how to use those tools in our favor, not against us, but for us.
Amen.
That's good. That's good. And then, we aren't going to go into it today, but the interconnecting of that, it could be because they're not getting food at home, or there's instability at the house. And when they get to school, all of that is on their minds and they cannot, grasp what they're being taught. So that's that other part of the interconnecting that we will talk about probably next month. So we're going to add those particular things in, but y'all are so on point. Reverend Burns, if you will because we talked about community advocates. Will you enlighten us on the situation that you were very volatile in bringing to attention in the area that you were at?
Okay. So what I'd like to do is, Mr. Kent has a video. If he'll play just that portion at the beginning where it introduces the city of Rock Hill as Football City, USA.
Better than Friday Night Lights. It's the best feeling.
Friday night high school football games are an American tradition, but only one town called itself Football City, USA, Rock Hill, South Carolina. With a population of about 75,000 people, it says it's turned out more NFL players per capita than any other city in the U.S. Tonight's high school stars could become tomorrow's next pro athletes.
And that ball of muscle that we call Caleb Sims is just
We can stop it there.
And I make a great play.
Okay, thank you so much. So I just wanted to give that backdrop about Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is my hometown, and also where I minister both in the AME Zion Church and in the community. So I'm also a alumnus of Rock Hill High School. So within the last few years, we've had a very poor varsity football program, although we're called Football City USA, and the high school is the namesake of the city. So when I was when it came to my attention is I have a niece that is a part of the high school, and she was attending the football game. And in that particular football game, there was a very horrible defeat, and she was told, "Get used to losing." And so my tentacles popped up because we're not a family of defeatists. We're not a family of low performance. And I was like, well, she's actually attending the high school that I went to. We've never had that mentality. So when I reached out to the school administrators, they never responded to the question, what are we going to do about the varsity football program? The morale of the students, the atmosphere of the school does not reflect what we expect in our community and in our schools. So I never got a response. So I started moving up the chain. And I got a response, but then was ignored when we started to try to implement the plan that we had put in place, which is we were going to put together an evaluation tool for the coaching staff, as well as put together a sports advisory council. And so I began to realize that that there were some hidden rules. And so I started reaching out to school board members. I also tried to, again, speak with the district office leadership. And so when I could not get feedback and could not get responses, I started posting on social media. And I don't like to do that. I'm not that type of person. But I knew that something major was going on. And so when I started posting on social media, I was surprised at how many responses I got. Most people had to be private, though, because they're concerned about their own child being retaliated against. Mm-hmm. So when I started asking more questions, it was told to me that it's typical of the school board to ignore Black and brown families. And if you, if like Mr. Nichols said, if you look at several of the sports programs throughout our district, you're going to have majority Black and brown students on those teams. So we're still trying to work through this process. Right before this meeting, I attended the School Improvement Council for this particular high school, Rock Hill High School, and I directly asked the principal this time, since he was not willing to respond to me earlier, I'm looking him face to face now, and I'm asking him questions. So, and we have a new athletic director. He did not attend the meeting tonight. So, I'm still going to work on him. But what we have to do is find out what the concerns are from the stakeholders, like the students themselves, when the students are being told, expect to lose. But we're in a city that is known for football. I just don't understand that. That doesn't work for me. And so, and no student should experience 4 years of that. No, not going to happen under my watch. That's my take. And so, and it is hard to speak truth to power. I've been to 6 school board meetings speaking to them about this. And Mr. Nichols mentioned earlier about citizen participation. I've gone through the process of citizen participation, but again, there are a lot of hidden rules. But just be persistent. Be persistent, and again, know what the other stakeholders are interested in. Parents are interested in this. Other alumni are interested in this. Many of them are afraid to be visible, but I don't have much to lose. And then when I think about my foreparents and my ancestors, what more can they do? They can put a cross in my yard too, but it's not going to sway me. I've jokingly told people the only thing I own is a CRV. If they want to come get that, come get that. But I'm going to keep fighting the school board, concerning this, because this one particular school is the only school that's not competitive in football. And so again, the main principles behind what I wanted to share with this particular scenario is that we have to be persistent. Look at the chain. I started with the school administrators. I went to the district office. I went to the school board. School board keeps giving me the runaround too. You got to figure out what their hidden rules are, but stay persistent. And I do believe change is going to come.
Absolutely.
Reverend, okay. Let me take the baton from Reverend Burns, because we're in the same neck of the woods here in Rock Hill. So let's connect the dots for just a moment. So you have let's say a parent concern group. We'll give them a name, Moms for Liberty. They're concerned about certain issues, whether it be banning certain books, etc. So what do? They gather other concerned, like-minded parents. They pool their money together, and then they put up candidates to run on the school board. Okay, follow along. Those individuals run for school board, and then because of lack of participation when it comes to voting, lack of voter participation, aka voter apathy, you end up with 2 or 3 individuals from this group, Moms for Liberty, on the school board. Well, guess what? Now they have formed a majority on the school board. And thus, even though they can't do it because they're school board members and they're supposed to be, quote unquote, impartial and represent the entire school district, now that they're on the board, their colleagues that are still within Moms for Liberty can now say, well, hey, we want to submit I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings as a book that needs to be banned to the school board. We can submit The Bluest Eyes by Toni Morrison.
That's right.
Et cetera, et cetera. So then they submit that list to the school board. The school board will try to be, quote unquote, judicial and form a panel to look at these books to be reviewed. And then that panel will come back and say, okay, we recommend the following books be banned. But now I want to say to us this evening, read the Bible. Read the Bible. It's some interesting things in the Bible. We get caught up in, just read the Bible. I'll leave it at that. Read the Bible. But I want you all to connect the dots, because when you start talking about individuals, because what Reverend Burns ran into was a good old boys network. Let's call a spade a spade. She ran into an old boys network, a good old boys network. And unfortunately, especially, down south, so to speak, below the Mason-Dixon line, football is king. And unfortunately, you run into that old boys network. But guess what? Be persistent, as Reverend Burns said. Be persistent. Continue to go to the school board meetings. Continue to ask questions. Continue to raise concerns. If it means putting people on blast on social media, then so be it. But at the end of the day, our key objective is to protect our children.
Amen.
That's our key objective. Nothing else matters. Our key objective is to protect our children. It's not just protect our children when it comes to metal detectors. It comes to making sure that they are getting a quality education, not just any kind of education, but a quality education.
Mr. Nichols, what you brought into, and I think we're going to transition into because all the interconnecting dots of voting. School boards are elected positions. School boards are elected positions. And when we do not show up to vote, when we go through those barriers of not voting, it doesn't affect us. Now we see how it affects us. So going into voter suppression comes in so many various forms. A lot of people do not know that school board members are elected. And then there are those at large membership. There are committees that you don't have to vote for, but you can be a part of that will give you access to the information that is on the school board. So could we explain just a little bit some of the prevalent methods and the consequences as we begin to see the banned books is one of the consequences on marginalized communities' voting ability. We have to get informed. Dr. Walker, when it comes to voting on elected people on the school board, what could be a tool that we could use, or what could be a method to get us informed of electing our school board members?
Okay, again, we are people of faith. The church is extremely important. All the candidates come to the church. They want the endorsements of the church. They want the backing of the church. It takes 300 signatures to even get on the ballot to run for school board. Many of those signatures I received when I was a school board member came from the church. Going to churches, talking with pastors, talking with leadership. So the church has a vested interest in making sure that we encourage qualified candidates. As Brother Nichols said, we've got to fight against that fringe group. So that means we've got to encourage parents, educators, people who love children, people who are interested in what's right and good for children to present themselves as candidates. And we need to support them, which means we've got to give them money. We've got to be out there to help them spread the word as to who they are. And then we've got to encourage people to vote. They got to go to the ballot and vote for these candidates. Because if they don't, the other side is going to push their agenda, push their candidates. So we've got to find people that we know will speak on our behalf and support them in every way we possibly can, especially by registering to vote. Make sure we are registered, provide access and ways for them to get to the ballot and vote. We have early voting in Ohio. We have voting on the weekends in Ohio. We have other ways that people can vote by mail in Ohio. So there are a number of ways we can educate people about voting, exercise their right to vote, look at the candidates, elect that candidate that's going to speak for you when it is time. Because in Ohio, school board elected officials have two responsibilities. They elect the superintendent and they hire, in Ohio, the treasurer. They elect the superintendent and they hire the treasurer. So those two persons are responsible to the Board of Education in Ohio. So that board wields a tremendous amount of power and influence. So we've got to push persons who want to go, and we're in that process right now in November, selecting qualified persons right now, candidates right now, seeking our support, seeking our endorsement, so that we could push them forward to be elected on the Akron School Board.
Very good, very good. And we allow the politicians or elected officials to come into our church, give their 3 minutes sky in the pie, pie in the sky initiative. Let's switch it around. Instead of you coming on Sunday morning, let's come on Saturday to a community meeting and let's begin to ask questions on where you stand on these things. Where did you vote? Where is your mindset when it comes to these particular things? Resources into our community, resources into our schools. Instead of giving them a platform, let's give them some accountability.
Yes.
So instead of inviting them into, your Sunday morning, hey, this is such and such, and they're coming to give, they're running for elected officials. No. Let's have a Saturday. We'll even feed you. Come on a Saturday and invite the community in so they can begin to ask questions, because we are electing you. That means I'm putting my trust and my power in my vote. And I don't want somebody up there that's not going to represent the good of all instead of the leveling of few. We really got to begin to do that. Church is the most influential community.
Yes.
I don't care how they want to put it. I don't care if you run away from the church or you're not a part of the church. The church will always be the central focal point for things that happen in this world. And so we have to use it, not just on Sunday morning, but there's a Monday through Saturday, other days that we really got to have that influence in the church. So instead of inviting them on that Sunday morning or that meeting that they're going to come in and speak, have them sit down with the community and answer questions. That's another way that we can do this. Yes, go ahead. Reverend Grace, and then Reverend Burns.
Okay. And I appreciate you saying coming in on a Saturday. One thing that people have done, and I think this have affected voting, is that people vote for who's popular. You don't vote for the reason and what that person really stands for. You vote for who's popular or who your mama said that you need to vote for because she knew his uncle back in the day. And the thing is, if we don't learn and know what these people represent, and then we don't dig into it, our school is a voting site. So, people are hanging all outside. So guess what has happened now? On the voting site day, we don't have school. Because it's not safe for them to be at school when people are voting and they're scared that something is going to happen. How about we make it so that we know who's running, we know what they stand for, and that we as a people, because if we don't do it as a people, guess what? They're not going to do it for us. They are trying to put their foot on our throat and keep us down every chance they get. I think back to 1868. 1868, that was when that amendment came through where African Americans were allowed to vote. But guess what they did back then? Guess what they did? They moved polling places. They put a poll tax on it. One guy said, look, I can't even afford the poll tax, so I can't go and vote. I mean, they went and gave them a literacy test. Guess what? Back then, people couldn't even read. So guess what? Because they couldn't read, they couldn't vote. Do you know that it took until 1984 until Mississippi decided that they were going to ratify the 19th Amendment and make it so that women would even have a right to vote? And so if things like that are going on up to 1984, I was graduated high school in 1986. Good gracious. You mean if I was in Mississippi, you won't let me vote? Was that true? And the thing is, if we don't teach our children, if we don't teach them now, if we don't educate them, if we don't make sure they have the resources that they need to learn, to grow, so that they can move forward and that they will be the next great leaders in society, guess what? History is destined to repeat itself. And so this foundation and this method here that we have, this is a way of us educating people and us not being afraid. Stop being afraid to stand up for what's right because you don't want people to say something to you. Stop being afraid to speak up for right because you're scared that they're going to say something about you. They're going to run your name down. Guess what? God got your back. He got your front. He got your side. He got your top. He got your bottom. He got all of that. And if we all stand together and keep God at the forefront, guess what? We're going to make this thing a great success.
Amen. Amen. Reverend Burns.
I just wanted to add, in terms of some strategies also, is to think about how we can continue to partner. We've named some other groups, but let's now, the groups that are conservative that we are concerned about, but let's name some groups that we want to promote, like Project 100 and like the NAACP. Because again, here in Rock Hill, what we are trying to do now, especially the Rock Hill branch of the NAACP, is to look at how we can change our school board structure. Because just like you mentioned, we have 5 seats that are elected by individual districts, and then we have 2 at-large seats. Well, it's very hard for us to get the type of representation that we need on our school board that truly represents our demographics when we have those 2 at-large seats. And so we're working now with the Rock Hill branch of the NAACP to see what, or NAACP, to see how we can make changes. And so we're going to need voters, like has been said. We need us to, the church, Project 100, NAACP, to help us get everybody informed so that we can make this important change, because with those at-large seats, we just can't get the representation that we need. We're trying to flip these seats so that when a person like me needs to stand up at the school board meeting, they're not intimidating me. They're not telling me, if you say certain things, I'm going to gavel you, which was literally told to me before I stood up, Wow. But I looked at her and said, okay, so you actually already know while I'm here, I wouldn't even have to be here if you had responded to me. But she told me she was going to gavel me if I said certain things, so, but we need to change the structure of our school board, and we're going to need voters, and other groups with like-mindedness can help us get the word out, can help us advocate. So we want to look for those other groups to, in order to help build our strategy as well.
Amen. So audience, I know we got some amazing questions. So we need you. We need you. Your kids need you. Our future needs you. Our present need you. Speak up, speak out, and do not be disenfranchised. My brothers, my beautiful Black brothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, show up. You might not have a child in that school district. You might not even have a child in that state. But if you show up as a concerned citizen, if you show up as, you know what, I was watching, and I think I saw in the comments, was it great guys or great dog? My God, that did something to me, because we need those particular things. So we need to connect those organizations. There is power in solidarity. Yes, Georgia called Watchdog, dads of great students. That is amazing. That is amazing. We need that. That needs now to be in every state. We Absolutely. Need those particular things. We need that whole group. I think one of my adopted sons, Juju, they do. They all the dads give a high five as the kids are going into the schools. That empowers kids to see, oh my God, there's people that care about me, because we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know their context of where they're coming from their home. So to see a community, to see my pastor, to see my youth director, and to see my teachers, my community leaders, Big Mama from the corner, a cousin TT standing here cheering me on. That's going to change my whole mindset when I walk into that school. And then I also go to a school board meeting and begin to see faces that look like us, right. Things of that nature. That brings a whole nother level of, oh, y'all are really concerned about us. And so those are elected positions. Mm-hmm. Do not allow any obstacle for you voting to prevent you from registering to vote, from going to vote. And so we definitely need those programs. Repairers of the Breach does another amazing aspect of Get Out the Vote. Poor People's Campaign, that's another advocate to get out the vote. Orchis Institute for Social Impact, there's another avenue that the church is this anchor institution, this foundation that is for the community. So we have so many groups to connect with. You're not out there by yourself. You're not out there by yourself. But even if you are the lone voice in the wilderness, be the strongest, loudest lone voice in the wilderness. We really have to begin to stand up for our people. So thank you for that historical context, because that's a lot of things people don't understand. The struggle it was for us to vote. Come on. The struggle. And you see it is repeating itself about all of these voter restrictions, voter suppression bills that have passed. When you no longer have autonomy of your body, you no longer have autonomy of where you live. These are all voting. These are all effects or results of voting or not voting. These are all the effects of that. So thank you, guys, for that historical context. And in voting initiative. So the intersectionality, and then we're going to get to the questions because we really want the audience to answer some of the questions. So please have your questions already into the comments so we can get to it in our Q&A as we're wrapping this up. The intersectionality is the concept that various forms of discrimination intersect and compound. And we have seen y'all connect the dots with banned books, school board, and elections. It follows.
Mm-hmm.
It follows. How do we get banned books in the school? Because the school board has designated this as the curriculum. Well, how did they do that? Because they were elected into there
and never told a day in their life.
Because we did not vote. So you see the dots. So that band or ballot is connected. It is connected. And so we begin to see, so how does this concept apply? We see how the issues of banned books, we see how the education, and we see how voter suppression are so interconnected. And we know that there are specific communities or groups that have disproportionately affected by the banned books and the voter suppression. And we are beginning to find those steps. So understanding that intersectionality is not silos. These are all interconnected. They're all running together. Dr. Walker brought in the funding aspect. Again, another part of voting.
That's right.
The gerrymandering of the lines of the district. It's crazy that you can count a prison population as one. You can count them in their population, but they can't vote. So you can count me as a number, but I can't even use my voice to vote. So that's a whole nother part of the intersectionality of these things. Resources into communities, voting, all of those things come together. So understanding that intersectionality and these injustices that we have seen leads to more of us having effective advocacy and beginning to look at policy changes.
Yeah.
When you change policy,
Yes.
then it begins to trickle down. Money will trickle down. But policy probably trickles down.
Exactly.
And so we begin to look at that.
What's interesting is sometimes these school board members don't even know the policies that they are supposed to be implementing. And so that's another thing that I had to bring to the attention. I think that was the last school board meeting that I spoke at, where I showed them that we have no policies for athletic staff. They evaluate administrators, they evaluate teachers, they evaluate support staff, but there's no evaluations of athletic staff in our school district.
Wow.
But they're spending inordinate amounts of time with our children. And you're telling me nobody is required to account for them, to see whether or not they know what they're doing and whether they're doing it effectively and whether they are truly caring for our students. And so you're right about the policies and procedures, because many of them don't even realize what policies and procedures are within the district that they are elected to serve.
That is
yes.
And you
yes, sir.
I'm gonna connect the dots again. All right, so let's go. Let's start from the top and work our way down. Next year we elect the president of the United States. Depending on who we elect, will determine who the president will appoint. Or in regards to or recommend for appointment and approval by the Senate voting, who will be over the Department of what? Education.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The Department of Education flows federal funding down to the states.
Yes.
However, keep in mind, who is your governor? Okay. Now,
makes a big difference.
Now, in some states, you elect your state superintendent of education, like we do here in South Carolina.
Yep.
And then from there, as what recently happened, the state superintendent of education cut ties with the South Carolina School Librarians Association. I wonder why. Okay, let's connect some more dots. When you vote, you determine who represents you at your state house. Well, guess what? At the state house, they determine legislation that involves education. Well, guess what? There are legislation that is presented that says, okay, we want to make sure that critical race theory is not taught in public schools. It's never been taught in public schools.
Never been taught.
We want to make sure that it's not taught. But in the whole process of that, they want to encapsulate Black history as a whole, so that you're careful not to make anyone feel threatened or feel as if that they are the cause of the problem. So I say all that to say, connect the dots, ladies and gentlemen. Your vote is not only for the president of the United States. It's not only for a governor. It's not only for your state house, not only for your school board. It's all interconnected. And when we learn that, then we can make an educated decision. It's all connected, ladies and gentlemen. Please understand. At the end of the day, they will present to you, oh, well, we're banning these books because of the LGBT. Listen,
that ain't it.
Listen, that is a smoke screen.
That's it.
That is a smoke screen, because guess what? If you're not careful, the next book they're going to ban is Letters from the Birmingham Jail.
Amen.
Have mercy, Lord.
So we've got to be careful about the smoke screens. We've got to educate ourselves, plan your vote, and then vote your plan.
Yep.
There you go.
Right. And we get caught up in cultural wars. That's literally what it is. And we get so distracted by that, we miss what the main thing is.
Right.
We're so caught up in those cultural wars, those buzzwords that is bringing all of this emotion and attention, that we're not seeing that they're stripping us underneath it. We're fighting up here, but they're stripping us underneath. And that is why we have to be so informed. An informed voter is a dangerous voter.
Absolutely.
A critical thinking informed voter is an extremely dangerous person. And so if you keep me ignorant, you can keep me oppressed.
Dr.
Brown. In the state of Utah, they banned or wanted to ban the Bible. And they wanted to ban the Book of Mormon. Two books that undergirded the religious faith of the state of Utah. And the state of Ohio right now, as again, Brother Nicholas has connected the dots. The governor and the state legislature, which is majority Republican controlled, has taken the power and authority away from the State Board of Education and formed another group so that they could hold the power as it relates to curriculum, books, all of those things, so they can dictate. The Republican majority, House and Senate, can then determine, so it doesn't have to go through the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education just becomes a figurehead because of this new organization that the governor and those in power wanted to establish, so that they continue to move us in a negative direction, to strip away our power, our history, our legacy, our access to those things. So again, it all goes back. It's all local. All local.
All politics are local.
You've got to begin to take advantage of those local levels, to elect those local people, even if it's the dog catcher. Look at who you're electing.
That's right.
That dog catcher is going to determine if your dog is going to be safe or not.
Yes. You're
So
right.
we got to make sure that we elect people on the local level, which is the tie-in with your boards of education, with your city councils, with your county councils, because all of them receive funding in some manner from the state or from the federal government to be able to use those funds so that we can access those funds. We're pushing and want to push universal pre-K. It's very expensive. They'd rather spend money, as Sister Grace said, on these violent videos.
Absolutely.
On these other areas, because we've got to be careful. Somebody mentioned in the state of Ohio, you have the 3rd grade guarantee. The governor finally put a pause on it, but if you didn't pass the 3rd grade guarantee, you would be liable to be held back.
Wow.
It has been already stated that they use that 3rd grade guarantee as a barometer as to who later on is going to be in prison.
Wow.
And the pipeline to prison.
Pipeline to prison.
So
Yes.
we have to work hard to change the narrative, change the story, to be out there as vocal and as physical as we possibly can to let people know that we're concerned. And in South Carolina, if you're that one voice, you make sure that those on the school board know they were elected by you.
That's right.
Yes.
They're elected by you. And if they don't respond to your query, that they can not be reelected.
That's right.
There is
So
power in
they are responsible to you, even though it may be the Good Boy Network. The Good Boy Network won't last always if you have some folk out there who are concerned about their children and are willing to do the work to get qualified candidates and support them to be elected.
Yes.
Dr. Broom, can I have 1 minute?
Yes.
Mr. Kent, if you could put up the data, I'm a data girl, that teacher. I need you to put the data up for 4th grade. And so this is 4th grade, and this is education from, and I think it may be slide 3 or 4, if you would. Equality is not equity. Please know that. I want you to look at this. And so go back right there to that achievement gap. So go right back to that, please. This is the reading achievement gap, and this is from 2003 to 2022. I want you to look and see where we stand, and we are the orange. And do you see how far below we are versus Asian Pacific Islander, white? I want you to look at this, and this is data from the U.S. Department of Education and Statistics. So this is the reading gap. And this, I hope, will put fire under us to do even more. Can you go to the next slide? And the next slide is the math achievement gap. And I want you to still look. And I want you to look at what happened 2019. What happened at 2019? 2019 is when COVID hit. And so I want you to look at how low we are on the totem pole. But I also want you to look at this. And this is something that I hope will give everybody hope. Even though we are at the very bottom, I want you to look at how everybody went down in 2019, which means the only place for us to go is up. If we get everything in place and we make sure that we are educating, make sure that we're teaching, making sure that we all know what it is that our job is to do. If you wonder, is it for you and God? Are you asking me that I'm supposed to do something? Yes, you're on this call tonight. Yes, you're here tonight. Yes, you're still breathing even after COVID has come through. And it is time for us to take a stand. If you wonder again and you don't want any quotes or anything like that, can we go to the word? When I was thirsty, I gave you something to drink. When I was hungry, guess what you did? You went and fed me. When I went to jail, guess what? You came to see me. When I was sick, you looked out for me. When I was naked and I didn't have anything to wear, what did you do? You made sure that I had something to wear. And you asked the Lord, you said, Lord, when did I see you? And the Lord said, that which you have done to the least of them, you've done it unto me. And so this right here tells us what we should be doing right now. Those things that we do to the least of them, the work that we have been put forth and called and anointed and appointed to do right here in this place. And even before we even came here, guess what? This right here is a clarion call that we're sending out to the nation, to the world, to everybody who's listening, and the things that we have to do to talk to everybody. We've got a job to do, and we're getting ready to make a difference. We're getting ready to turn things around. And I tell you, if we all do these things that we've learned tonight from these wonderful presenters, all of this information that we have, I tell you, a difference is going to be made. Project 100, guess what? Project 100 is getting ready to go to Project 1 billion. And God is getting ready to truly, truly, truly show out if we all just take heed and do what we've been called to do.
And connect those dots.
Connect them
Connect
dots.
those dots. Yes. Absolutely.
You know how to do that. We know how to do that.
On the local level.
Connect them.
Connect them. It starts on the local level. All right, so we're gonna do some question and answer. I was ready to pass the collection plate after
I just got excited. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
No,
those
that's
are
That was
amazing. We
great.
need that passion, though. We need
Wonderful.
that passion. We need that passion. We
I
need
want my kids to make it. We
Yes.
want our kids
Amen.
to make
Yes.
it.
Exactly.
We want our
Absolutely.
people to make it.
And
Exactly.
it takes everybody.
Everybody.
It does. The village did not disappear. Do not believe the hype. It did not disappear. It actually got larger because now the village is on a virtual space.
Absolutely.
So your child is my child. Your child in California is my child. Your child in Alaska is my child. Your child in New York is my child. Your child in Texas and Florida, just left Florida, is my child. So if everybody has this communal mindset that it's one for all for one, Fannie Lou Hamer said, if one is not free, we're all not free.
That's
Exactly.
right.
So if one child fails, we all have failed. I do believe we all have it because we have to have that village. We have to have that village. And yes, there are some disparities, and we got to be there. The church should be more than just preaching heaven while our kids and our people are living in hell. We have to be the prophetic voice.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We
The
have
village
to be
is
the
back.
prophetic voices.
Come
We
on.
have to be the prophetic voices. All right, so we got some questions and a Q&A, and then we're going to wrap this up, because we can go on for days. This is just the first series, so I'm so glad y'all are in tune. Trust me, it is more to come. More to come. Tune in each month. Each month, we're going to have some amazing panelists. So we got 3 questions. Yes, we got 3 questions that we're going to address. If you have any more, just add them into the comments. We're going to try to get to them because we do not want to, y'all don't like staying long. So we do not want to keep you long. One of the questions is there a workbook for churches to support our schools and advocate at the school board level? That's some, I think that's some literature we can work on. We got enough educated minds, intellectual minds that can put that together. So that'll be something that'll be a Project 100 initiative. And I will be reaching out to some amazing voices, especially the ones that are on the call right now, in this panel right now, but there will be others, especially some retired educators, that we can get that historical context. I think you can't have anything for the future until you get a historical context of the past.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be reaching out and grabbing those informed individuals.
This is CED month. Christian educator, we're calling you right now.
Yes.
This is CED month. Christian education month. Come on, Christian educator.
Excellent. Excellent. So yes, we'll definitely be reaching out for that. The other one is, does the 504 and the IEPs also speak to other creative ways to help the child if they learn differently? And so I'm going to hand that to Reverend Grace and Reverend Burns. And I think Dr. Walker also will have some concept to that.
In my line and where I am, absolutely. But it's also going to be the responsibility of not just the person that does their outside assistance where they go into the classes. It's also going to be the responsibility of the in-house teacher and their teacher as well to come up with these ways. And there's so many ways. And if you ever need any, just let me know. But the thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we where they talk about leveling the playing field, we're getting away from, it's not just equality, but it's about equity. We can all get the same book, and that's equality. But if you give me the book so that I can read it, I can't read like they can read. So I'm gonna give it to you on your ear so you can listen to it. Okay, I can't spell like they can spell. Okay, I just need you to spell it the best way you can, but make sure you get that thought there. And so yes, absolutely, there are definitely some ways using the teachers, the resources, and whatever we decide that we want to put in the IEP for that child as well, that can be there as well.
All right, Reverend Burns.
Yes, the only thing that I'll add, because I think Reverend Grace has done a sufficient job with answering it, is that, again, look at a community aspect. For example, I spoke to people in my family who are educators. I spoke to people in the community, especially since I'm not familiar with the K through 12 system. And so when it comes to creativity, it's really going to depend on your school district, what theories that they endorse for education. So you want to be thinking about what theories that they look at. And I know that's a little bit high language, but because of how we are interested in teaching the whole child and teaching every child now, we may have to go outside their particular classroom, and there may be another teacher in that grade level that's more suitable for them. Or we may have to go into the community like I did with my own family, with other people in education, and ask questions and then help bring it back. So think about ways that if the creativity is not already present in that classroom, again, we can bring it in.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And I just want to emphasize, it's already been said, I think Reverend Burns had mentioned it, Reverend Grace, Reverend Brother Nichols, you've got to be persistent as relates to 504. And you're going to get a pushback, maybe from the counselors, maybe from the teacher in the classroom, maybe from the principal, but you've got to be persistent.
Please.
One of the tools that they use here, and they just started this week, is the iReady, either iReady Math, either iReady Reading, that assessment tool. That may not be the best assessment tool. I'm not a real big proponent for iReady, but that's what we're using. Right. So you've got to be able to talk to your teacher once that assessment comes out to make sure your child is where they need to be. And you've got to challenge them, because they may say, well, they're okay, they're in the middle of the road. Well, no, we don't want them just in the middle of the road, because it's going to get harder and harder. And we want them to be challenged. So we've got to speak for our children so that they get the extra help that they need. And that's what the 504, that's what the IEPs are for the extra help that they need so that they can be successful, to give them all the tools. If there's after school tutorial programs, participate in that. If there's Saturday things that help them, if there's, for our high school students, credit recovery, so that they can graduate, so that they can catch up. They can take the test 3 or 4 times during the year and during the summer, so that they can graduate on time. In fact, we put in the Akron Public Schools students who did not graduate on time in June. They took the test, passed it during the summer. We had a special graduation for them in the fall.
That's right.
Amazing.
They would still be a part and could celebrate their graduation. We've got to find ways to make sure that our students succeed.
Yes.
And also, let me say to parents, don't feel afraid or intimidated to ask for help.
That's right.
Parents, we don't know it all. But we know a Reverend Kathy Grace. We know a Reverend Sonia Burns. We know Dr. Walker. You know educators, whether they be in your family, in your church, or in the community. Don't be afraid or intimidated to ask for help. Because guess what? The way they did math in 1989 is not the way they do math in 2000.
They don't carry one no more. Come on.
So, don't be afraid to ask for help and seek out information. You're not the only one, but you be the very one to step out for your child, so that your child won't get left behind. So that your child will be informed, and then more so you will be informed, so you can make educated decisions on behalf of your child. But please don't be afraid to ask for assistance. If some of this terminology, as Reverend Burns said, theories and IEPs, it can be intimidating. Ask for help. People in the community. Just step up and say, you know what? Can we sit down and talk? Can we go somewhere? Go to Panera. Anywhere. Just sit down over some bread and talk about my child's education, because I don't want him to fall. And listen, I don't care what parent, who you are. The very thing you don't want is, and you know it. You always tell your child, I don't want you to fall behind. I don't want you to fail. I don't want you. So guess what? You be your advocate. You be your child's advocate. I tell my children's teachers every year, I will be my child's biggest advocate. And now I'll be the biggest critic too. If you do wrong, I'm going to call you out. But I'm going to advocate for my child.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Absolutely. And those are the things. And I always, I'm always, where can the church step in? There are retired educators sitting in your church that you can use. That I don't want to be a Christian education director. I'm too old for that. But you are a retired educator that you can help us help our children. Have a Saturday school, have a Saturday afternoon, use a part of Sunday school to help them. Reading comprehension. That's how my kids learn. And my kids they're now teaching their kids. Reading comprehension started in Sunday school.
Yes.
When I saw that there was an issue or a concern with how my children process information, I used Sunday school when I became a youth director. And I saw that my young people were having difficulty speaking and reading. Guess what I used? I used step practice. We got 20 minutes that we're going to go through this. We have to become creative in using these different things. If you can sit there and make them memorize the Easter program and yet they can't read on a 3rd grade level, come on. We have a problem. So let's use all of these avenues. Stop. Again, I always say the church is the central part. Stop using the church just for Sunday morning.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We begin to use that Wednesday night Bible study, not just for the adults. Have the kids in another space where they're learning. Okay, what challenge did y'all have this week in school? You know, what issues are y'all concerned? If the school doesn't do it, then the church does have to step in.
Absolutely.
It does have to step in. So we really begin to do that. We really have to begin to do that. Our third question, are you all connected to Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight organization to see how she fought against voter suppression in Georgia? Absolutely, we are. Project 100 was a part of connecting with that organization for Fair Fight. We have to be our best. We have to be our own advocates.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be our own advocates. We have to be our children's advocates. We have to be our children's cousins' advocates. We have to be our children's neighbors' advocates. Love thy neighbor is not just not killing them. Love thy neighbor means I'm going to cover them. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to help them. I'm going to lift them up. And our neighbor does not have an ethnicity. Our neighbor does not have a socioeconomic boundary or a level. Our neighbor is our neighbor. And if you see our indigenous communities, if you see our shadow communities, our Hispanic, Latino, our Chinese, our Asian communities struggling as well, guess what? They are our neighbors. They are our families. They are our sisters and our brothers. And so we do have to embrace that. And that child that is falling short, that child that you say, oh God, that child is trouble. There's a reason for it. And if you're not helping, you're part of the problem. Mm-hmm. And so we really have to begin to expand that. I want us to wrap up because again, we can talk all night because we have so much to unpack. We've given you as much as possible. We don't want to keep you on long, but we do want to wrap up. Everything is interconnected. We are a communal people. We have to care for our children. We have tried to connect the dots between education, banned books, and the ballot, and we know that it is local. So I would like for y'all guys, amazing panelists. I hope y'all give a round of applause for our amazing panelists on this first series of Project 100 Presents. To close us out, Dr. Walker was always our end, so we're gonna have him as our beginning. Give me, if you could tell the people one thing from this that they can go and do tomorrow or begin to think about and plan and strategize for tomorrow, what would it be? And that's everybody's question. If you could give them something that they can begin to do starting tomorrow, after they done pulled in all this information, pulled in all this passion, pulled in all this experience, what can they do starting tomorrow to be an advocate for the children in their community, those that are faith leaders? What can they do? Those that are Christian education directors, those that are leaders in the church, those that are community leaders, those that are concerned citizens and community advocates. What could they begin to do starting tomorrow? One thing that will begin to connect these dots and begin to change action. Dr. Walker, we'll go to Damon, Reverend Burns, and then Reverend Grace.
Other than pray and connect the dots, as we have been talking about, I went down to my school board and I lifted up points of pride. Talks about all of the areas that the school board is in. Familiarize yourself. Talked about the students, the makeup of the students, where we have over the majority are African American. Talks about funding source, talks about career academies, all the information that you would need on this one little pamphlet so you can educate yourself and then go to your local school in your area and get involved.
Awesome. Awesome.
Parents, hear me well. This is going to affect you, but you need to do it. Starting tomorrow, take the electronic device from your child and put a book in their hand.
Very good.
Take away the iPhone, take away the iPad. You don't have to take it away for 5-6 hours, but at least 2 hours. Take away the electronic device and put a book in their hand and read it together or observe them reading.
Yes.
And then help them as they are reading.
Very good. Very good.
That's my one thing.
Reverend Burns.
Yep. I'm going to start off with saying I am because we are. Again, I'm community minded. And so I would encourage you to find the other people or the group that is like-minded like you and join with them and fight that good fight of faith, because I am because we are.
Very good. Reverend Grace.
On tomorrow, I need you, if you do have a child that is in school, I need you to contact the teacher tomorrow. And when you contact the teacher tomorrow, I need you to start with something positive and tell that teacher, hey, how are you? I just wanted to check on you. I wanted to see how you're doing. Is there anything that I need to know about my child? Communication is key. And if you get great communication between parents and teachers, boy, we are already so far ahead in the fight.
Amazing. Amazing. And if I could wrap everything up in a sentence or in a paragraph, it would be, as faith leaders, as faith-inspired leaders, as churches, as community leaders, adopt a school.
Yes.
Adopt a school, and not just to give them book bags, but there are things throughout the year. Just show up. Just show up to a lunch. There's a kid there that may not have anybody to show up for them, but you show up as a community. You show up at the PTA meetings. You show up at the recitals and if you can show up to the football games and the basketball games, show up for the spelling bees. Show up for the recitals. Show up for after school homework. Show up for homeroom. Show up. Just show up. That by itself speaks volumes. It speaks volumes when that kid can look out and says, hey, there is somebody who sees me. There is somebody who cares about me. And that's something you can do tomorrow. As a church, you can say, hey, we are going to this school and we're going to pray. They might not let you pray around the flagpole, but I guess what? You can pull up and pray as those kids are walking into that school, even though they are maybe of different faith. God of all creator, called by all different names. You can go ahead and say it like that. We are covering every child because they are made in imago Deo, in the image of God, of their creator. You can do that. You can do that. And so I'm asking everyone, show up for these kids. As faith leaders, adopt a school. These teachers are dealing with so much pressure from administrators, from parents, from school boards, all of these different things. They can't even really truly enjoy the teaching because of all these other pressures. So celebrate a teacher. You don't know the struggle that they're in. So celebrate that teacher as well. So those are things that we can begin to do. We're going to break down, and we'll do a review. We'll have those links to all the information that was given on tonight. Thank you, I'm going to call him Dr. Kent, for this amazing platform. Thank you all for tuning in. We are looking forward to next month's Project 100 Presents. So please tune in. Thank you again. As we are closing out, we're going to just do some affirmations, because we do know that there are people of different faith that are tuning in. So the divine presence of creating of us, called by so many different names, we are affirming that we are our children's advocates. We are affirming that we are community advocates for our children, for our teachers, for our parents. As faith-inspired leaders, we are going to be standing in solidarity. It doesn't matter about a big church, little church, a different ethnicity church. We are all going to stand in solidarity, because the success of our children is the success of our present as well as our future. Lord, we ask that you just continue to guide us and ground us.
Yeah.
And focus us not on fighting each other's differences, but building off of that diversity to be the beloved community that you spoke of, to be the beloved community that sees everyone not as an enemy, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to learn and grow. As we are entering or leaving this virtual space, we thank you for this platform. We thank you for these messages. We thank you for these panelists. We thank you for those that tuned in. As this is going to be replayed in different spaces and different times, we ask that someone gleans and then reaches out to a child. These are our affirmations on today. We say, I say and amen.
I say.
God bless you all.
Amen.